So we do add things in. That's where herbology, the herbal medicine of Chinese medicine is so great, because there are things that you're missing. There are some deficiencies, and herbal medicine can really kind of target those. And same with the lifestyle and diet changes. So in Chinese medicine, food is used as medicine an awful lot.
Right.
And we have a whole nutritional course where we learn the different characteristics of food that can be used to balance or counterbalance the different characteristics or deficiencies that we see in the human body.
Welcome to the Koolers Lifestyle podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and I'm excited to have you join me as I interview community members and business leaders from the communities in which I live, work, and serve through my business Cooler Garage Doors. We're going to bring you highlights on characters in our communities. Why? Because community matters, and I want to know more about who is behind our business and leadership in order to understand and support the community fabric that our relationships make up. And collectively, we can build stronger communities that support our lifestyles, our youth, and our health.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Koolers Lifestyle podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn. Today, I have my friend, Timoni Slusher, who's the doctor of acupuncture practicing here in Gunnison, Colorado, somebody who I've visited with, and I'm excited to go deep on understanding the practice a little bit more. Timoni, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
You're beaming in from your comfortable home here in town?
I actually live in Pitkin.
In Pitkin.
So I'm about 30 minutes outside of town.
On.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's start by having you just share where you grew up.
So I was born in Gunnison.
Awesome.
Gunnison, Colorado, a long time ago. And I did not. My family moved, so I left the valley when I was about 10 years old, just entering late elementary school, and ended up in Florida, of all places, which was not really ideal for a gunny kid to land in Florida. But I ended up going to high school in Fruita, so I was kind of closer to home.
Wow. All right. Did you always stay in small towns, or was Florida a big town?
Oh, it wasn't that big. No,
Right
no city.
Right on.
It's always been small towns.
So how would you define your childhood in general? I mean, those are some big shifts.
Big shifts. It was very ungrounded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My childhood was moving a lot, and just my family was disrupted several times growing up.
Yeah, I followed that.
Yeah.
So high school in Fruita, give us a little bit of pathway to where we're at today.
So I grew up as a kid who loved animals, loved dogs, and I wanted to be a vet. So I also made the choice to join the military right out of high school. And so as I was kind of cruising through college and on my vet track, I got called up to have to go to war.
No kidding.
So I had to drop out of college and go to Iraq for a year or so. In the meantime, my stepmom got sick, and then so I was needed at home for a while, and really my pathway just kept getting interrupted. So took a break, and then started looking around at what my GI Bill could help me pay for, and landed on acupuncture, which coincidentally ended up in the back of my mind through a veterinarian that I worked with, who did acupuncture on the horses and the dogs, and even a bunnies, cats, whatever came in. And I was immediately drawn to that. As soon as I saw him do that, and I saw the results, and I saw the kind of people that were drawn to his practice, I knew that there was a seed planted.
Sure. Wow. So you served in the military. Is that Like a
Yes.
typical, is it typical for a 4-year? How long?
It is. I joined as a reservist, so I was
Okay.
still able to kind of to work
Yeah.
and do the military thing, and that's an 8-year
8 year.
commitment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Looking back from where you're at now, how do you feel about that experience?
I believe it was a very necessary experience in my life. It's not one that I would choose again, and definitely not one that kind of resonates with my soul or my being. I'm not a military person. However, it all serves its purpose, right? Would I have known that I'm not that person if I didn't go and kind of live in that lifestyle and surround myself with those people? I don't know. I definitely needed the discipline at that time, right out of high school.
Was that part of the impetus? Like what was the motivating factor for enlisting?
There, when I look back on it, there really was no motivating factor. I was a 17-year-old kid, and they told me that they could help pay for school and that I would get to learn some cool stuff. And, and I just was like, okay, this looks like a great path.
Right on. Well, for what it's worth, thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
As you went into acupuncture, what is the process? I can imagine that I can't just pick up acupuncture needles and start dropping them in places, but what is it? What does it take to get that doctor of acupuncture license? Is it a license?
Yeah, so it's a you have to have an undergrad in order to enter the school, and then it's a 4-year master's program before you can become licensed as an acupuncturist.
Yeah.
So I spent 6 years in school to become, it's like a 6-year master's. And and then the doctorate portion was after I had already become licensed and started practicing. I was able to pursue that. That was a couple more years of school, more on the research side of things, not necessarily the practice of acupuncture. The skill is already there. The art form has already been, I've learned and I've practiced it, and I've kind of honed that in. But then the doctorate portion really helps to understand a little bit more of like how we fit in our world, in the Western world with conventional medicine, and how to practice based off of evidence, right? So now how to research, or they also want us to kind of go the typical doctor route and start writing or researching. And a lot of my colleagues do that. For me, I'm very much a clinician, but I do use my skills and my research skills an awful lot to keep my practice evidence-based.
I love that. So from your perspective, how would you define acupuncture?
So acupuncture is one modality within the entire system of Chinese medicine, and it's a tool. So acupuncture is the practice of inserting needles into specific and strategic points on the body. But the practice of Chinese medicine is more really what we do as acupuncturists. And it's an entire medical system. It recognizes and uses the human body to diagnose different patterns and diseases, and then can put together a treatment method based off of that. And those treatment methods can include a lot more than just getting acupuncture. It's herbal medicine and different ways to manipulate the channels, such as using cups or gua sha tools, and lifestyle changes, and then really creating balance throughout the whole human being with the goal of ultimate health.
Yeah. Is the underlying belief, and maybe this is for all of Chinese medicine, and it could really show out my ignorance, but is the underlying belief that the body has just about everything it needs to heal itself?
Yes. Kind of.
Fair enough.
So we do have to introduce, right? We have to introduce things to our body that also help us heal.
Right.
You can't go to McDonald's for breakfast every day, eat a bag of Cheetos and a soda for lunch, and then expect to be disease-free because the human body can heal itself, right? We also have to give our body the tools needed in order to remain healthy. So we do add things in. That's where herbology, the herbal medicine of Chinese medicine is so great, because there are things that you're missing. There are some deficiencies, and herbal medicine can really kind of target those. And same with the lifestyle and diet changes. So in Chinese medicine, food is used as medicine an awful lot.
Right.
And we have a whole nutritional course where we learn the different characteristics of food that can be used to balance or counterbalance the different characteristics or deficiencies that we see in the human body.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know if you saw the show that I just launched last week with Megan and Scott Reamer, Jackson's Chips. Part of their journey is looking at the chemistry of foods and diet, and they engineered a deflammation style diet. And that's ultimately where Jackson's Chips was formed out of that.
Hey everybody, this is Luke from Cooler Garage Doors. Just want to take a quick second to talk about our sponsor, Sommar Garage Door Openers. In our opinion, Sommars are the highest quality product on the market today. We recommend them for all of our residential garage door installs because of the variety of features they include, such as Wi-Fi connectivity and safety features such as a fixed chain, which moves along a secure rail to ensure your garage door opens quietly and safely. Click on the link in the description to learn more about Sommar Garage Door Openers.
And so I understand that component for sure. So, I visited you as a patient and had needles stuck in. And my understanding is those are hitting what I would call meridian points and opening up channels for an energetic flow, which I would also imagine is like impacting circulation. But how, try to form the question here, because I'm trying to understand. I mean, there's very much like tangible nuts and bolts. Like a needle can go into my shoulder and I could feel the muscle quiver, and maybe there's a release in the muscle. But then there's also an intangible component here, which I would just reference as energy and channels, and starts getting a little woo-woo. But how would you like define that? Because there's some reality to that, yes?
There's very much reality to that. So I kind of like to go back to, let's think about how we are formed, right? So we start, and this is even just post conception, okay? So we're starting in our mother's womb as a group of just a couple of cells. And as we grow out from that centerpiece, right? And then our arms extend from that, our head extends from that, our legs extend from that. So we are not legs attached to a body. We are not arms attached to a body. We're actually all connected from the very center to the very tips. And so Chinese medicine has identified these connections as what you call channels or meridians, of how they integrate the entire body, from the deepest organs all the way down to our fingertips and the tips of our toes to the top of our head to, even at the end of our nose. So that seems to really help people grasp that a little bit more. We grow up in a culture right now where Western medicine is amazing at discovering, like breaking things apart into the tiniest little pieces of like, this is the kidney, and this is the, and this is your hand, and this is your finger, and these are the blood vessels. And then we create specialists to deal with all of these things too. And somewhere along there, I'm kind of lost the fact that we actually are all connected. There is no mind separate from the body, there is no kidney that exists outside of the body.
Right.
We are all just still one big organism.
Yes. I love that explanation. That makes so much sense. And I mean, both really need to be present in order to really understand some of the minutia behind there. I mean, some of the siloed isolating, like that has its own cost, but it also brings its own benefits. And the whole connection piece is definitely something to remember. And we are kind of what we eat and do with our bodies. And I would even go further to, the state of mind that I carry can have an impact on the physical body.
Yes.
What is
absolutely.
What's a typical session look like from a patient perspective in your office?
Yeah, so start to finish, you come in. If I haven't met you before, then I kind of need to know, like, why are you here? What do you think that I can help you with? And so I get that background information, and then I ask some other questions that may or may not even be related to what is happening, So you come in for shoulder pain, and then I'm going to say, well, how are you sleeping at night? And how is your digestion? And that just helps me put together the whole picture of what else is going on that could very much be related to why you have pain as well. So after all that, I feel your pulses. So I feel pulses in 12 different positions underneath 6 of my fingers, 3 fingers on one side and 3 fingers on the other side, right at your wrist. I look at your tongue. The tongue can give me a lot of information on the internal climate of your body. It is a muscle that we can see on the outside, and so it can give a lot of information to body health, hydration, digestion, and different imbalances that might be happening in the body. And then my first goal is always to address those imbalances based on the bigger picture first. So at that point, you lay down on the table and I talk you through what it's going to be like to get your first acupuncture needle inserted. And then I go through the protocol of balancing the imbalances that I see. And then I also like to address very locally what's going on. So most of the time, if you have joint pain, there's going to be muscles surrounding the joint that are out of balance. Some are going to need to be tightened and shortened, and others are going to need to be released and lengthened. And so then I balance out those muscles and hopefully send you home feeling better than when you came in.
I love that. Do you find that people complain about the needles hurting?
I wouldn't say complain, but I always ask. My goal is to let people be comfortable.
Okay.
I'm not going to say it's pain-free. All right. I would make a liar out of myself every day. You may feel something, but that's okay, right? Because in order to know that something is changing, then we need to know that your body and the needles are having this communication and having this interaction. And that is a feeling. Sometimes the feelings are not therapeutic. Sometimes I stick a needle in and it happens to hit a hair follicle that got a little bit irritated, and those can sting quite a bit. But I'll take it right back out, kind of rub that area. Yeah. As soon as I put it back in, it feels better.
Yeah, and I'll speak to that as a patient. You're right, it's not completely pain-free, but they're tiny slivers of needles, and they get directed in really specific points. And you are very empathic. And if there is a non-therapeutic burning, I know that it's going to shift and be moved. And I think that's something special to recognize. And it's not any different than, not anyone want to compare. Any kind of therapeutic body work is going to have some sort of discomfort.
Yes.
I want to, you mentioned the tongue. Is that a piece? I'm curious what you look for in a tongue. I'd love to see if our listeners look in the car mirror or in the bathroom mirror with their tongue out. If I'm doing that, is there anything that you can offer for what I'm looking at that could give me guidance of whether or not that meal I had yesterday was benefiting my body or not?
Sure. I can look at some of the more common tongues that I see. And so I look at tongue size, shape, color. I look at the coating on the tongue, and then look for any like markings that might be on the tongue. Some people have teeth marks on the sides of their tongue. Some people have a lot of cracks in their tongue. Some people have what's called and they'll know, like, I have a geographic tongue coating. Some of that can be genetic, but a lot of times it means something in Chinese medicine. And so, yeah, I encourage everyone to take a look at your tongue and see what you see. If you have a thick white coating on there, that's indication of some digestive upset, that your digestion is a little bit blocked, and maybe you can make some small changes to your diet, like eating less fried food, eating less dairy, and see if that thick white tongue coating can actually clear up. Another really common one that I see is a pretty red tongue with cracks in it. That's more common in our aging population. We are going to end up having some sort of imbalance throughout our life, right? That's what leads us to death. And unfortunately, death is like that thing that's going to happen to all of us. And it happens through the process of disease and imbalance. So those really red tongues with cracks, you can see in elderly populations, but I also see them a lot in people who have undergone a lot of illness, such as cancer, and the treatments associated with that. So somebody undergoing like chemo and radiation, it's going to really burn up their yin. So we look at yin and yang, yin as being kind of the moistening, nourishing parts of our cooling parts of our body. Well, that chemo and radiation burns that right up. And so their tongue becomes dry and red and cracked. And so those are two kind of common ones that I see. But the coating is pretty easy for people to notice. Same with the tongue, the teeth marks on the tongue. That generally means that there's some extra swelling in the tongue. And that's a dietary thing as well. Cleaning up your diet can start to change that.
Yeah. Interesting. What does a healthy tongue look like?
So a healthy tongue should be pale red, right? Not pale, but kind of like pinkish, like a fresh steak. And it should have a thin white coating that looks like it's well rooted.
Awesome.
And there should be few marks in it. So not too dry, not too wet, right? Also having too much moisture on the tongue tells me that your body's not absorbing, or your cells aren't using the moisture properly. And it's just kind of sitting on the outside of your muscle. So there can be dehydration in those instances as well.
Fascinating.
So pale tongue with a thin white coat and very few markings. That's your healthy tongue.
All right, everybody, go check out your tongues. Come back. Let us know how you're doing. Timoni, you seem really grounded right now. Like, do you feel like you found your purpose?
Absolutely. Yeah. I have found my purpose. Because I'm human, sometimes I'm after a long week of work and I'm feeling pretty drained. Because as any healer knows, as any giver knows, like it can be hard. Sometimes like, man, I really need to find something else. I need to find something. Maybe I need to make more money. Go to school a lot to be an acupuncturist, and then you just don't make the money back. But then I start to think, well, what would I do? And there's nothing there. I'm like, well, I'd be an acupuncturist.
Yeah.
So here I am.
Beautiful.
There's nothing else out there for me. I love it.
I love that. What are you excited for?
So, I'm excited for this year. Something about this year feels a little bit different, a little bit more promising. The timing with this podcast is very interesting too. Like towards the beginning of the year, sometimes I just kind of sit and I think of these different words that are going to define like what's going to happen this year. Connection was one of them. And it's like, okay, connection is in connection and love and strength are some of these words that have really come out this year. And I feel like we've been somewhat disconnected over these last couple of years. You know, the pandemic didn't help that at all. But then also just looking at the big picture of where our world is. I'm raising a little girl here, and it sometimes scares me how disconnected we are, and the avenues that we're using to feel connected that are so shallow. Social media being one of those.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, I'm looking to be connected, but that's not true connection. We've completely taken out like the human to human interaction of that. And so I'm excited to feel that I think there's going to be a shift happening in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, to where people realize that that's not true connection, and we're going to find it, and that is going to heal us as a society, and it's going to heal us as a world.
Yeah, beautiful. Love that. Timoni, for folks that are interested, who are listening, how do people reach out to you? And this is a two-part question. How might people learn more about the practice of acupuncture to decide or determine if it's something for them?
Internet is so full of information. So that's just, I mean, I'm going to say acupuncture is for everybody. Like, why not?
Right.
You know, go find your acupuncturist and go sit down with them. Or even just before that, sit down with yourself and be like, where can I be better? Or what can I do? Or what am I doing in my life right now that's just masking or covering up disease instead of actually getting to the bottom of it and trying to fix it? So if you're waking up and you're taking ibuprofen every day because you have headaches, or if you are taking Prilosec because you have heartburn and you can't eat without a medication, you're covering something up. You're feeling better, which is fantastic, right? Nobody should be in pain. But do you want to fix that? Do you want to go to the root of the problem and eventually wake up and not have to do this to cover up what's actually going on? Acupuncture's for you.
Yeah. Love that.
Do you want to avoid getting a cold in cold season? Do you want to keep your body in balance? Do you want a clearer mind? Do you want to be able to perform better if, say, you're an athlete, you know, and do you want your body to work as well as possible? I mean, I can think of a reason for acupuncture for everybody.
I love that. How do people get how do we connect with you?
So with me individually, just you can call me, or I have a website and you can book online through my website. Cool. It's very easy, very simple. If you don't live here in Gunnison, find an acupuncturist where you are. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
There's at least one.
I love that. Well, we'll include your website in our show notes. So folks listening, you can find Timoni's website link below in the show notes. And Timoni, I really, really appreciate you sharing your story. As I mentioned before we hit record, I love the context of a human's life. And this was super interesting for me. I love how the thread of your life evolved into acupuncture. I do think you have some amazing gifts when you are bringing that into the world. And so I appreciate you. Any closing thoughts you might have?
No. Yes, always have lots of thoughts. I would say, for everybody out there listening, and I think we're all kind of feeling the same thing. Like, what can we do to make this world a better place? And my advice to you is start with you. So do some of these things, right? Find something that you can change to make yourself healthier, brighter, happier, like self-improve. Because when you self-improve, it has this amazing radiant effect to all of those around you, starting with those closest to you, your family. And like, let's heal the world by healing ourselves.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Timoni.
Thank you, Matt.